Hello YouTube, it's Rom from Ramen Noodle CCG, and today I have my very first Duel Links Deck Profile. So, I was talking with some friends of mine about the Invoked engine and what Mechaba would add to the metagame, and after discussing some usual things, like things you'd normally play Invoked in, like Shadal, Dogmatica Spellbook, that kind of stuff, um, a friend of mine sent me this list. um, well, sent me this deck idea. I liked the concept, so I took it and ran with it. I took it upon myself to optimize his list, and that's what I'm profiling here today. This was from my friend Nero Scarlet, from the DLA Discord server. Link is down in the description if you guys want to hang out. We play Duel Links and Master Duel on there, and just have a good time. Yeah, so without any further ado, let's get into the deck itself. So, why True Draco? Now, the synergy here may not be super obvious, but because Disciples and Heritage let you tribute summon without using your normal summon, you still have a normal summon for Alistair. So, because we have the normal summon for Alistair, we can play Invoked in this deck. Now, Invoked adds a higher ceiling to True Draco that we didn't have before. You can't play cards like Pot of Duality, you can't play Terraforming or Stormforth, but I think the negate more than makes up for it. Being able to have an Omni negate that also banishes is kind of crazy. And another cool synergy of that is that because we have so many spells and traps, the Mechaba negate can be a spell negate or a trap negate in addition to the monster negate provided by the Alistair discard. Especially because you can search out more spells and traps with Ignis and Dynamite Knight. Another cool synergy is the fact that it's a small thing, but Majesty Maiden and Ignis Heat provide you with attributes for Purgatrio and Regen. It's a small thing, but it can come up. So, looking at the list, we're playing some fairly standard ratios. Obviously, we play the 3 Alistair on the 1 Invocation. You could play a second one, but I didn't think we needed it, especially because this is not a deck that revolves around fusion summoning. Like, Invoked Shadal would probably play 2 Invocation, just because it's a fusion spell. Drawing it and popping it with Diagram does make the engine dead, but that's something you just have to deal with. We're at 21 cards, so it's not too unlikely to draw it, but it's not too big of an issue. We're playing 3 Heritage and 2 Draco Phoenix. You don't need 3 Heritage. You can definitely make do with 2 or even 1, but I think you want at least 2. I just like the 3rd Heritage for the extra draw power. 3 Dynamite Knight, 2 Majesty Maiden, and 2 Ignis Heat is pretty standard for True Draco, I believe. The cool thing about Dynamite Knight is that it's a water, so it plays around super polymerization, which is really important for the hero matchup, because as they do not have Elemental Hero Absolute Zero, so that's the only super poly target that a hero player does not have an attribute for, so that's pretty neat. 2 Return and 3 Apocalypse is pretty standard. The extra deck is very flexible. Obviously, we need the Mechaba, Purgatrio, Agoides, and Ragin. The Mageletica and the Kaliga are flex spots. You can basically play whatever you want in here. Obviously, we need the Artemis for the light attribute of Alistair to get to Mechaba. And the Phoenix can come up sometimes. The M7 came up once or twice, so I added it in. But you have like 2.5 flex spots basically, like the Phoenix and these 2 Invoked fusions right here. So another cool thing about this is that you can tribute over Artemis to just get a little bit of extra card advantage by not having to tribute a spell trap. It's a small thing, but it does come up. And yeah, so that's the deck. I believe. This is a pretty cool showcase about how True Draco and Invoked work together. Yeah. So we're going first.
The darkness. I'll tear you to shreds. I'm the Supreme King, and I will rule this world.
So this hand is a little bit awkward. We just kind of have to diagram. So obviously we activate the heritage before we pop, because we want to get another heritage draw potentially. So I go for 2 heritage draws, hoping to draw into an Alistair potentially. I draw three traps. So I just set and pass. Yeah. So we chain Dynamite Knight to the Eclipse, but he has the droplet. So he goes for Diamond Direwolf here. Try to crack the board. Using the skill, he can get to an Xyz monster. Going for Utopic Ray Lancer. Thankfully there's no extension here, so we are still alive. Especially after using Apocalypse to pop Heritage, snapping it back row. And then we get another diagram, so we can continue breaking the board by popping the Apocalypse. So that's another cool thing about True Draco, is that using diagrams to pop your spells and traps can help you break boards, which is quite nice. We're using Disciples to draw. We draw into Alistair, which is really good. So now we can further crack the board. That's one plus of playing this over something like the Sky Striker engine, which some people like to play with Invoked just to have like going second cards to pair with Alistair. But True Draco can help you go second by popping your own spells and traps, but it also has a bit of a higher ceiling going first than the Sky Striker stuff, because the pops are a little bit better than just a Widow Anchor, in my opinion. Especially because you have the follow-up off of the Surges. So yeah, we Heritage draw, we go Alistair, we fuse into Mechaba, Tribute Summon Maiden, and win the game. So that's the first replay. I believe I have 2 more. I did have some replays against meta. I did win a few games, but they were kind of sloppy on both ends. So I just picked the games that showcase the deck best. So here we have a game against Zombies. So we have not a great hand here. A few too many monsters, but we do have Diagram. So Zombie World, if you'll notice, prevents us from Tribute Summoning, which is very, very bad, because we need to Tribute Summon. So the opponent goes for Baylor Drock here. So this is pretty scary, but I have to keep calm and try to crack this board somehow. So I could pop the Apocalypse to break the Baylor Drock, but it doesn't actually do anything because it just comes back. So I need to get Heritage here. I go for Heritage. I can't draw because I don't have anything, but I do have it out to the Zombie World in the form of Apocalypse popping Heritage to crack the Zombie World. So I will be able to try to outgrind this guy.
Here's my set card. I activate a continuous trap. Pointless. I activate
So I do this in the
trap.
draw phase. This runs the risk of running into something else. I was worried about Nightmare Phoenix, because I can't activate both effects of Apocalypse in the same chain. So I want to be able to Tribute Summon using the Apocalypse and get the pop of both the monster and the spell. So I'm taking the risk that he doesn't have, that he might have a second Zombie World in order to do this. So I pop the Zombie World here. My opponent goes for Nightmare Phoenix immediately. But now I am... he goes for the Diagram, which I think is kind of smart, because this guy knows that I have monsters in hand. But maybe it's better to force it out. I'm not too sure. But... now we get to Apocalypse here. Summoning Dynamite Knight. Popping the Phoenix. So, the problem here is, if you'll notice, the Nightmare Phoenix discard was Algol Mizera. This actually presents a bit of a problem for me. If I allow this to happen, like if I try to punch into this, my opponent's just going to summon the Algol Mizera, and I won't get the effect of Dynamite Knight because it's in the damage step. So then my opponent can start making some big plays next turn, but now this way my opponent has no follow-up. He's just top decking at this point. Book of Life is pretty good, but I do get to chain off the Dynamite Knight. So now I do actually have a pop to contest whatever he's summoning. So I go for Return here. My opponent goes for Algol Mizera, protecting the Balordrock, but now I can chain to it. Draco Warrior. Yeah, so I get the thing. I get to chain block the Balordrock. I think. Yeah, I get to chain block around the Balordrock, which is pretty cool because I'm responding to the zombie effect, so he can't respond to the zombie effect. So he gets the Algol Mizera back, but we have some follow-up here in the form of Disciples. My opponent goes for Ding here. Ding Send. Punches over with Ding. Punches in with Spectral Sword Shade. But now we're just in a surprisingly good position, because we have just so much follow-up. We can go Disciples to draw. We get to shuffle some stuff back, get a draw, get any more back row to start cracking the board. I want to deal with the back row first. I'm preparing to pop the Ding on his turn, using the Apocalypse and the True King's Return. So that's why I go for the Disciples first. So I'm essentially trying to force out as much Ding material as possible. The back row turns out to be Samsara, which is not too threatening. And we get a Maiden Trigger, which is really nice. So I fire Return here for the summon. Now, if my opponent tries to punch in with Dingirsu, I can trigger the Apocalypse in the damage step. I opt to not use the pop now, because I want the damage step trigger. I'm a little bit greedy, but I think this is actually the correct play anyway. Because now I basically force out all the Ding materials, and now I'm in a commanding position. So we wrap this up very mightily, just popping the Ding and swinging for game. So yeah, that was a pretty good showcase of how True Draco breaks boards, and just the immense grind game that this allows us. So we have one more replay. I don't remember what this is against. Let's see. I don't think this is Hero, actually. It's something else. Oh, it's against Dragon Maid. Okay, yeah, this was a pretty good replay. So this is what happens when you draw the Invocation. You either have to... so with this hand, I regrettably think I do have to pop the Invocation, just for the grind, for the extra card advantage, rather. So we do get one draw off of Heritage here, which is something. We draw another Heritage, which kind of sucks. I just hold it in hand. So in this situation, I do get one back row pop, because Dynamite Knight can summon Apocalypse. Yeah, Dynamite Knight gets Apocalypse here. So my opponent goes for downtime. Attempts the search. Goes for Hospitality. I don't think this is correct on my opponent's end. It's a little bit of a weird line, but I think it ends up doing the job. It's a very close game, I think. So goes for the changeover. Changeover Fusion Summon into Shio. So the Shio is really scary because obviously it's a negate, but I can essentially force this out. If my opponent negates the Shio, or negates with Shio, I can trigger the Apocalypse to pop the house that gets summoned out. So essentially, he cannot beat over my Dynamite Knight in battle phase. I could have waited to damage step, but I kind of wanted to get rid of the downtime. That might have been a little early, but my opponent negates, and then I get to crack the house here. Yeah, so I get to break down the house. Apocalypse. Disciples here. So I go for the Heritage Pop here. So my opponent changes Droplet, discarding the card from hand. So because my opponent used Droplet here, I'm pretty confident that this card is not tidying, because if this was tidying, my opponent would have sent it off Droplet. Because the opponent needs tidying in the graveyard to revive. Otherwise, he's just completely dead. So I'm just assuming it's not tidying. That back row could literally be anything, so I want to pop it. So I go for Diagram again, pop the back row. Yeah. I want the draws here. Yeah, okay. So now I pop the back row. It turns out to be tidying, which is kind of silly. I feel like my opponent did not get punished for the misplay. But, oh well. We get so much card advantage here that it doesn't really matter. We try and grind with Dragon Mage for a little bit, but it ends up not mattering in the end, as you'll see soon enough. Searching Tidying here, Chamber, Summon Tintek. So if my opponent tries to use the downtime effect, then he loses on the spot, because that's just lethal damage. So there's no use using downtime. My opponent goes for Chamber. We get more triggers. Just gaining card advantage off the True Dracos. My opponent gets doubled Chamber in rotation. Then decides to change it up with downtime. So now we can make the Shio again. But once again, he's in the same situation, right? Because I can break the Shio using the Apocalypse effect. So now I have Apocalypse for house. So it damage step by Apocalypse and win the game that way. So yeah, I hope that was a cool showcase of what this deck can do. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thank you for watching and have a great day.